Okay, so in our continuing videos on Photoshop typography, I wanted to talk to you about, in a previous video, we talked about type basics, and then we talked about installing custom font, and we talked a little bit about design and sampling colors from photos and doing a hierarchy and then picking a font that has personality. So we're going to try this out, but we're also going to look at some of the features that we have up here. So I'll go ahead and click on my type tool, and I want to put the title of this book right here. So what people normally will do, or new designers, is they'll click once and they'll just type the title. And there's the title. You can't really see it, so I'll double click in here and I'm going to choose this gold so that they connect. So there's my text for right now. And they'll usually make it big, and your instinct is to put it right in the center. And hey, that's not bad. It's just kind of basic. So what I would recommend is, first of all, keep this just in case you want it. So I'll go ahead and drag this down to the new layer icon so that it creates a copy. Now, what I do is I actually break up all of these words into their own kind of text file. So I'll go ahead and delete girl and click on the type to commit it, and then I'll click and type girl. And then if it has something like I'll go ahead and type that. So now what I'll do is I will start moving these around like puzzle pieces. So let's say I want to select alpha and girl, make it really big. And then what I'll do is I will start taking each one of these, and see how it has like this little gap right here. So I could put it right here, but these all start to crowd and all these start to look weird. You could even try to line these up so it goes like that. So, just try to move them around like puzzle pieces to find some interesting ways of rearranging them. So then I'm going to go ahead and make it a lot smaller. So we want it to still be easy to read. You don't want to put the down here, because then we'll do alpha the girl and that won't seem right. And so what I'm going to do is, this has a little area that I can tuck it in right here. And I'll just nudge it over with my keyboard. And you can see how this looks thicker and this looks really thin because it's small now. So what I'll do is I will come up to the Helvetica Neue font. And depending on what font you have, it might not have these options. But I can make this a little bit thicker, like make it light, and see if it more matches the strength now. I think that's a little too thick, so I'll just do thin. So it's halfway in between the first one and the second one. Okay, so that doesn't look bad. Now, it's still really clean and really modern, so I can come over here. And now, again, what I would do is I would just copy all of these and then turn the other ones off. But now you have those options, and I'll actually put those in a folder called Helvetica Neue so that I can come back to that if I want to. So now what I would do with this is I would come in here and choose a different font. So I'm not really sure. I want something a little bit more gritty. Now, if this was like a college type of book, or, she's going to college or whatever, then, that might work. But I don't know. Some of these are just a little too fancy. I need something a little bit gritty. No, that's a little too... Nope, that looks like we're kindergartners. So as you can see, we're always trying to look for... that's too cowboy. We're always trying to look for font with personality. Dead Kansas is actually not that bad. So I'll come over here and change this to Dead Kansas. Now it's at the top. Ooh, see? And then I'll actually leave the in Helvetica Neue. So this is going to take some rearrangement. So I'll do Command T because it's just a little too in your face. And now I'm going to take girl. And where am I going to put girl? Well, who knows? And I can even do something like maybe change the color. Or, yeah, not that color. I guess I don't want to have that color. So make it a lot darker or lighter in that regard. So I'm just playing around and moving these like puzzle pieces until I get it the way I want it. So that has a little bit more grit. Maybe that better matches the story. And I can maybe put that right there and grab all of these and then move it over. So just playing around with it. I probably still like the Helvetica Neue, but Dead Kansas was an option for me, but there you go. Okay, so there's the Helvetica Neue. And now a couple of things that you can work on with these is you can mess with some of these settings. So when I come in here, I'll just do some sample text for you. If I click here and drag and put some sample text in here for you to see some features. Okay, so I'll do Command A and make this smaller so it fits. So with some of these features, I'll turn this off. This is leading, so I can increase the line spacing. It's just a fancy word for line spacing. So as you can see, as it gets bigger, it's spacing it out. So sometimes I like to tighten that up a little bit so that it looks more like a chunk and that these two lines are together. So what you have with these is you have the kerning, and the kerning is the space between letters. So if I turn this off and turn this on, sometimes they look really tight and sometimes they look too loose. So in this instance, I think this is starting to look really tight. So I can grab my type tool and just hit tight or the T to get in there. And when I click in here, I can do, let's see, I can't remember. Alt or Option on your keyboard and then use the left or right arrow keys. And that's when you can kern it manually. Now you can come over here, you can see this number will change and you can start kerning it. You can do -75 and then it'll cross over, which looks hideous. But so what happens is when you start using a font and you make it really big, like huge, let's say it's for a banner, it might have not been designed to be that big. And so the spacing will be off, especially when you have really skinny letters and then really chunky letters or wide letters. And so you kind of have to adjust the spacing manually. Now, if you look up in Google kerning, like kerning design or kerning issues or bad kerning, you're going to see examples of how terrible this is. And just be warned, once you know what kerning is, you see bad kerning everywhere and it drives you crazy. So one thing I like to do is I actually like to do tracking. So let's say I had the author of this book and I'm going to make myself the author because I'm awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and put my full name, and I don't want this to compete with the title, especially because I'm not a well-known author. So I'm going to make it small and have it sit in there, and that's probably just too thin. So we're going to do light for that. All right, so there's my name, and maybe I want to make it a little bit contrast, a little bit white. And all right, so now in here, what we can do is we can do something called tracking. So kerning is the spacing between two individual characters, and tracking is the spacing between all characters. So when you click and drag, it's going to add some space in there. So if I were to make this a much smaller font, that's a really cool way. Sometimes it looks really modern, really clean. A lot of luxury brands do tracking in their text. So this is really good in this instance to add some tracking in there. So I'll go ahead and grab the move tool. Nope, I just wanted to grab, where's my name? Oh, it's actually in there. So I'm going to grab just the title and move that over and kind of get it where I want it to be. Okay, so some other things that you can play with in here, you have stretching, and this is terrible. This is when you actually stretch it like this, or you stretch it like this, or you do this. That really degrades the font, so don't do that unless you really, really have a good reason for doing it. But this is where you can fix it. If you were to accidentally resize this with Command T, and you wanted to resize it and you forgot to hold Shift, and so you did resize it, but it sort of looks squashed, what you can do is now you can see when you're in this text, well, see, it's like making me a liar. Normally it would tell you that it's been squashed, so nobody understands why it's doing that right now. So we're going to undo that. Well, okay, so there we go. So you can make these back to 100% and they will not be squashed. Okay. All right, so the other things that you can do is you can do a shift in the baseline, and that's going to take, like, if you wanted to make one word stand out, sample text in here for you to see some features. So if you wanted to highlight features and bring it up, or if you wanted to do like to the nth degree, or you wanted to bring it down, or whatever it may be, you can adjust the baseline shift there. Just be careful, because whatever settings you set in here, the next time you create text, all of those settings will still be for all of your text. So it can get kind of funky and weird. You can do things like, if I were to do the, let's say October 31st and make that lowercase, I can highlight this and choose the superscript, and that's going to create the proper October 31st. If I click in here, I can do H2O, and as you can see, it's making it really small, and that's because, like I said, it keeps all the settings. So I'm going to take care of that, put that back to 0. So now with H2O, I can click the 2, highlight the 2. Wow, like nothing's going right for me right now with this Photoshop. Okay, there we go. And now we can do the subscript. So this is also where you can come in and you can do underline or strike through. So just play around with a bunch of these features, because there's a lot of things you can do to make things easier to read. You can change things to capitals, bold, italic. Try not to use those. Use these bolds and italics, because these are the ones actually designed by the font designer, and they're going to look a lot better. This is where you can create, small caps. So if I click on October 31st and I do small caps, you can see that it gets like small capitals here. So if I click on this bigger one and do small caps, you can see that this cap is regular size, but then all the other lowercase have turned into smaller versions of capital letters. Okay, so that's basically it for all the other features. So what you want to do is make sure that you are separating all of your text so that it's easy to read, especially for headings, and that you're using all of these font features to make things easier to read for people. And so it looks designed. It doesn't look like you just typed, put it in the center, and called it good, because that's never going to get you anywhere as a graphic designer. So let's go ahead and turn on what we've got. So there's my book. Might take some adjustment, but this is something where I can send this to the client and definitely see where we're at with it and see if they like it.